All right, folks, back here in Alamance County. Previously, I was with Ron Osborne, with Kyle. We did some things as it relates to the Underground Railroad. But while being here in Quaker history, we recognized that there's much more to the feel-good stories here in Alamance County and Guilford County as well. We toured Guilford County as well, but right now we are in downtown Graham, North Carolina, and there's some history here as it relates to Wyatt Outlaw, as well as some Klan history that we're going to be exploring today. And we're starting right here in downtown Graham. We just finished eating at Press, which is a great restaurant that has crepes. But we're back with Ron. And Ron, how are you doing, man?
I am doing wonderful. It's a beautiful day to be out.
It is a beautiful day to be out. Y'all, Ron showed so much love, and in short order, I reached out to him, and he was like, yep, sure, we'll do this on Labor Day. So I greatly appreciate you for taking a day in which I'm sure resting was maybe on the menu for you. But give us some of the history about Graham in general, as well as some of the things in the sites that we're going to see today and where we're at. And if you all can look right there, there is a statue of a Confederate soldier right here at the Graham Courthouse.
So this is probably as good a place to start as any. So Graham is the county seat of Alamance County, hence the courthouse.
Right.
Alamance County became a county in 1849. It was carved out of Orange County, which is today the county to the east. But back in the day, going back into colonial times, Orange was a huge county. It took in Guilford County to the west, a part of Guilford County, and several other areas. So by 1849, the population had increased enough in the area that they divided the county up. And Graham was named after the governor of North Carolina at the time, William Graham.
Okay.
So that's how it got its name. That's when it came about and everything. This is not the original courthouse. This courthouse was built in 1923,
Okay.
and replaced, at least the one that was there for 50 years or so. So the statue that you referenced was erected here in 1914. That's when it was dedicated, in May of 1914.
Daughters of the Confederacy?
The Daughters of the Confederacy, during that period of time across the South, there was an effort to erect lots of statues across the South. Ostensibly it was to honor the Confederate veterans, but there was another side of why they were placed here. It was to let all the population know, white as well as black, that we're in charge. We're honoring folks that fought against our nation, essentially. And we're erecting it in a public place on government property.
Wow.
And so if you were somebody that was disenfranchised or enslaved, you could take that as a slap in the face that your taxes, is supporting something like that.
And it's right here at the hub too, as you all see. This isn't called Main Street. Well, actually it is. It is Main Street.
This is North Main Street.
So
and you may know this, but all Confederate statues are facing north.
Yeah, why is that?
Because they don't want to turn their back on the North, because we don't trust the North.
Oh my God. It goes that deep.
So, but when this statue was dedicated in 1914, the keynote speaker was a former Confederate officer from Chatham County named Major London. But the person that introduced him and was kind of like overseeing the master of ceremonies was a gentleman named Jacob A. Long, Jacob Alson Long. Jacob Long started the Ku Klux Klan in Alamance County in 1868. And as we walk around the corner here, you see that brick building there with the Pepsi-Cola sign?
Yes.
That corner window was Jacob Long's office, where the Ku Klux Klan was started in 1868 in Alamance County.
So right there
in that
is where
in
it's
that
at.
room.
Okay. Okay. And he had obviously direct sight of the courthouse.
He was an attorney,
Okay.
and he was also a veteran of the Civil War, and his brother, in later years, was president of Elon, what was then Elon College, now Elon University. So he was, prominent families in the county, and
Now it says hotel there. So
Yeah.
did it double as a hotel as well as a law office?
over the years, it was lots of different businesses. When 20, here comes the fire truck.
Yeah, it's gonna pick that up.
Station is over here. I don't know why they're coming from this direction, but
All right. So the noise from the fire truck is done. Hopefully everybody's safe. All right.
So anyway, yeah, this building has been many things over the years. The bottom floor, for many years, was a restaurant, not the one you see today, but a predecessor that served home cooked meals and everything. And
Okay.
of course, this courthouse was not the courthouse that was here in 1914 when the statue was erected. And the courthouse had elm trees all around it. Back in the 1870s, all the way up until 1923 when they built this courthouse. The significance of the elm trees is because there was a lynching here. On February 26, 1870, in Alamance County, the Ku Klux Klan was divided up into three different groups. The White Brotherhood, the Constitutional Union Guard, and Invisible Empire. They didn't necessarily go by the name Ku Klux Klan, but everybody knew what it was.
Right,
and
right.
if you see the official testimonies of the members, they called it the Ku Klux Klan, and
Sure.
everybody else did, but they went by these other names to kind of sanitize it.
Same mission.
Same mission. And in Alamance County, there were 10 dens of the organization, one for each of the townships that we have. But on one of these elm trees that were here on February 26, 1870, they lynched Wyatt Outlaw. So let's go ahead and walk across the street here. But every February 26th, we have a silent vigil here on the south steps of the courthouse for Wyatt Outlaw, and actually have some of his descendants participate.
What was the occurrence that kind of led to Wyatt being the...
So Wyatt was a very prominent citizen in the aftermath of the Civil War. He was a freedman. He had been born and grown up in Alamance County. After the Civil War, he became a business owner. He owned a shop that repaired wagon wheels and just did fabricating work here in town. He was the town constable. He was elected to be town constable, and he was on the city council here in Graham. And he was the leader of what was called the Union League, which was a branch of the then Republican Party, which in the 1860s and 70s was a very liberal organization. It's not the same party that we know today as a Republican Party.
Sure. Well, let me ask you this question real quick. Sorry to interrupt, but he had a lot of prominent titles, and so doesn't it go to speak to what the community felt about him? For him to be appointed to those positions, you know what I'm saying? To then being hanged. I mean, those are two different extremes.
Right.
So
it does speak to his prominence, but his prominence is what doomed him to some extent, because documentation shows that during 1870, and so the three branches of the Ku Klux Klan had 600 to 700 members
Goodness gracious.
in the county out of a voting population of 1,400. So
50%.
yeah, 50% of the white male voting population were somehow members of the organization. Now, some of the people were coerced into it. They said, either you become a member or you will suffer. And if you tell anybody, we'll kill you.
Right.
And there were affidavits, sworn affidavits on record where members of the Klan said, here's who made me join, and here's why. Sounds a whole lot like the gang violence you hear about in Central America and stuff, where they recruit people and then you've got to do this and you can't ever leave, you're stuck into it. So Wyatt Outlaw was a constable, and on at least one occasion when the Klan were riding into town to intimidate people, he and some of his deputies reportedly fired shots in the air to ward off, the Klan members.
And I'm imagining that these deputies were multiracial. I'm sure it wasn't an all black.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
And the Union League was multiracial because there was a partnership between the folks that were former, enslaved people, the white Unionists, the Quakers, the people that were Republican and such, and so they banded together and they carried some of the elections here, especially because in the aftermath of the Civil War, if you were a Union officer, a Confederate officer, or a public official, a lot of times you were prevented from running for office or voting because of your actions during the war. And so, and Alamance County actually voted against secession at the beginning of the Civil War.
Wow.
A lot of people don't want to recognize that several counties, Guilford County, Randolph County, Alamance County, they were not in favor of seceding from the Union. And during the Civil War, a lot of the soldiers that were conscripted, they weren't volunteers, they were forced to serve. So these statues talk about, these brave soldiers that volunteered to defend their country. Most of them were conscripts. Most of them were, at least from this area, were not in the Army by choice. In fact, Randolph County to the southwest of here became such a hotbed of deserters that Robert E. Lee sent a brigade under Robert Hoke, one of his generals, to Randolph County to go into the Uwharrie Mountains and the hollers down there and
to
find the deserters and bring them back, to the Army of Northern Virginia.
Golly.
We don't remember that nowadays because, but that's the case. And we have an eminent retired professor from Elon University that did tremendous research about Wyatt Outlaw and the Klan in this area. Said that probably in this corner here of the courthouse area is where the elm tree was that Wyatt Outlaw was lynched in.
Yeah.
And they put a sign on his body, hung it around his neck, saying, beware ye, folks, black and white. Sending a clear message to the white sympathizers that you're not immune from having violence visited upon you and retribution. So.
And so the trees would have been placed all around.
Yeah, trees,
so
and
to give you all the
we can see in
depiction.
the photos of the previous courthouse, you can see some of those trees. Now, I want to stop for a second. That was in 1870. I want to fast forward to July of 1920.
Okay.
50 years hence. In the month of July, there were 2 attempts of lynchings. More lynchings that took place here in Alamance County in this area.
The same
right here.
area.
Yes. The first one were an attempted lynching of two men that had been arrested, two black men who had been arrested under suspicion of sexually assaulting a white woman, which, you know, that was a common...
Oh, most definitely.
You know, and most of the time, it probably, there was no substance to it. But they put these two men into the jail, and it said that at that time there were maybe 2,000 people showed up to try to break into the jail and get them out. The governor of North Carolina sent a company of National Guardsmen from Durham, a machine gun company, to Graham, and they set up 3 machine guns around the jail.
What?
And then in the middle of the night, fire broke out. Rifle and machine gun fire and pistol fire. People were firing at the courthouse, and from the dark, the National Guardsmen fired their machine guns.
And this is in 1920.
1920.
Wow. Okay.
And a white man out in the dark somewhere was shot and killed. And you can go look at the official report by the Adjutant General of the National Guard in 1922, the governor. The story made it into the New York Times, made it into papers all over. You know, I've got copies of them. And it's like, you know, a machine gun was fired here in Graham, North Carolina, to ward off a lynch mob.
Oh my God.
Well, and the sheriff stayed away from the whole thing.
Oh, I bet.
The 2 men that were incarcerated, they were transported to Raleigh for safety and out of Alamance County. And I do not know what happened to them. Fast forward about 3 weeks later, another gentleman was accused of sexually assaulting a white girl, a younger girl, somewhere along the railroad tracks between Burlington and Elon. The president of Elon of College at the time formed a posse.
Now, was this the brother?
The brother of Jacob Long.
Okay.
And they found somebody that they believed was the perpetrator, brought him to the sheriff and had him put in the jail, and another lynch mob forms. And they were going to, and the authorities arranged a hasty court session to be taking place in, you know, downtown. And again, this would have been the older courthouse. It's not here today. While the sheriff was transporting that person from the jail down the street, the old jail, here, a mob, they said there was probably several hundred people around while they were doing this. A group of cars pulled up, and like 15 or 20 men got out of the cars and took the prisoner away from the sheriff and his 6 deputies, put him in the car, and disappeared. The sheriff claimed he didn't recognize any of them and didn't know how to, stop it, even though his 6 deputies were armed and all that stuff. Later that day, they found the bullet-riddled body of the man. His name was John Jeffress, southwest of Graham. And for the rest of the day, people went sightseeing to go look at the body and take photos of it. But you know, and the sad thing is,
did they turn it into a postcard?
Yeah, of course. And the thing is the sheriff didn't do anything about it. Nobody picked the body up. I mean, there's some complicity here.
Sure.
With how this took place. That, you know,
maybe a little less noise over here.
The authorities were not doing anything to deal with this.
Yeah.
So that was in 1920, and that was as far as we know, the most recent lynching that took place here in Alamance County. But There is a known third lynching that took place, and it took place in the days after Wyatt Outlaw was lynched in 1870, and it was another black gentleman who claimed that he had seen and recognized some of the people that had killed Wyatt Outlaw, and he made it, he went around town talking about it. They found his body in a mill pond south of Graham with stones tied around his neck. So it's a history that not that we want to beat anybody over the head with,
but there's no evidence of it here. Right, there's no evidence of it here. There's no historical markers. The last time I was here, there was like a wooden thing that was up against that lower wall where the clock is that said something about Wyatt. But that was something that someone just made and put there. But you wouldn't have known that this is really a site of terror.
Yeah, no public acknowledgement of anything with regard to it. And as we walk...
Well, let me ask you this, though.
Sure.
So as it relates to Wyatt, and we talked about this off camera, but how long was his body put up there? What his family... where was his body taken to? Is he buried somewhere that people know and could visit the site? What came about with that?
So Wyatt Outlaw's body people were too afraid to move it. So it wasn't until 11 a.m. the next day that his body was cut down from the tree. The reports I read said that they brought his body inside the courthouse and laid it out. But then, under cover of darkness, they took it and buried it in an undisclosed location because anybody that was doing anything or admitted an association with Wyatt Outlaw or that they were sympathetic with him, they were at risk because the sign that they had put on his body clearly stated
white and black.
Beware white and black. And not only did they hang him, but they cut his mouth. They slit, either side of his mouth because they said, well, he's too outspoken, he's too mouthy, he's too uppity. We're going to teach him. And they did all this in front of his mother and his children. So not a pleasant story.
Not at all. But you said that his descendants do come back. And
his
so
descendants,
obviously you've communicated with some of his descendants. And so what are their thoughts about, having that day where people are recognizing his existence and his contributions to the community, and how engaged are they in the planning process and everything?
They're very humble. They're not ones to draw a lot of attention to themselves, but I think they're very appreciative that it's not forgotten.
Yeah.
And that there's a group of 100 plus of us that, meet out here annually to not forget.
For sure.
And I'll point out, you see the fence around the statue right there.
Yeah.
During the all the turmoil in 2020, after what happened to George Floyd, calls were renewed to remove the statue, and I agree with it because you look at when it was put up, what was said in the speeches of the people dedicating it, what was their intent was. It's just an insult to part of our population. So
for sure.
We don't want to forget, the Confederate veterans, of course, but this is not the appropriate place for something like this. Mm-hmm. And if it were to stay, at the very least, put some interpretive signs about how it got here, why it's here, who did it, what is the background of those people that were involved with it. But
they kind of doubled down by putting the fence around it, for sure.
Exactly. And on October 31st, 2020, the week before the national election, we had a march to the polls. We started up the road here. I'm going to take you there in a couple minutes, at Wayman's Chapel Baptist Church. Wyatt Outlaw was a trustee there,
Oh, wow.
and his name is on the deed for the property.
Oh, wow.
And
So
it's up the road here.
he was contributing to this town in multiple
Many
ways.
ways, yes.
You know, one of the things that I appreciate about this community is just how eclectic its history is. Underground Railroad also is part of this community. A lot of people think about Canada, Indiana, Ohio, places like that when we talk about the Underground Railroad. But that's also part of this community's historical fabric that a lot of people may not know. And Ron is doing a great job, as well as others. Max, James, who we just visited, as well as others as well, are doing such a great job of creating and providing a more comprehensive understanding of the history here in Alamance County. But I do have to ask you this question: with the individuals that did all of this domestic terrorism, where are they? Where are their bodies? The descendants, like, how prevalent are they still in this community?
Well, the people from the 1870s and the 1920s, the ones we're talking about, yeah, we can go visit a couple grave sites, and I think that will illustrate that.
Yep.
Yeah, and their descendants are here, because you look at the records and the law of the names are the same.
Now, have any of them kind of changed their course? And
absolutely.
And do you know any of those individuals in particular?
There's well, I mentioned Thomas Holt, who was governor of North Carolina from Alamance County.
Yeah.
In the 1890s.
Okay.
He was arrested let me back up. So in 1870, after the lynching of Wyatt Outlaw, the governor of North Carolina, who was a liberal Republican, declared Alamance and Caswell County in a state of insurrection. Because in Caswell County, they had actually, with the complicity of the sheriff, had murdered the state senator in Caswell County inside the courthouse. The courthouse is still there, and they took him into a room. I mean, they lured him into a room to have a conference about something with the sheriff. And when they got in there, there was like 10 other men waiting for him, and they killed him in there. And so the Governor William Holden, declared Alamance and Caswell in a state of insurrection, and sent Union troops under a George W. Kirk, who was pretty ruthless, to come over here and clean things up. And
Wow.
so anyway,
It was a setup.
Jacob Long, some of these Klan members, either they got arrested or they fled the county. They went to Missouri. Now, why did they go to Missouri? They went to a place called Clay County, Missouri. Now, Clay, and if you look at the names of the townships and everything in Clay County, they're the same names as they're in Alamance County.
Really?
Yes. I live in what's called Albright Township. There's an Albright in Clay County as well. Now, who else was from Clay County? Frank and Jesse James. There's documented evidence that in 1869 and 70, 71, the James gang was here in Alamance and Caswell County and may have participated in like the Wyatt Outlaw lynching and the terror during the Kirk Holden War.
Kirk Holden War, right.
They called it the Kirk Holden War. It really wasn't a war. It wasn't two armies fighting each other.
Right.
But it was a ruthless reaction to the Klan violence here. And Governor Holden was the one that declared the area in insurrection, and then Kirk was the commanding officer that was trying to, respond to it. And so that's what they called it, the Kirk Holden War. But I will say, because going back to your prior question, has changed. Some of the Holts here have become pillars of the community. Bertha B. Holt became a legislator representing Alamance County in the state legislature for 18 years. was just one of the model public citizens. She advocated women's rights. She had laws changed that said that a woman could not own property or get a loan without, like a husband or male's signature or an endorsement. She had all that change in state law during her tenure in the 1970s and 80s. So, yes, families can change.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So we're still on Main Street. Leading up to here, what was happening back down in this area?
Well, this is the route where Wyatt Outlaw was prodded and beaten and dragged to his death.
Okay, so
from
down
this direction.
Okay.
We're going to walk up to the site where his house was.
Okay. Is the church down here too?
Yes.
Okay, we're good.
So, Wyatt Outlaw, it appears that his father was white,
Okay.
named Chesley Fawcett, and his mother was black, and he was sent to live with another couple shortly after birth, whose last name was Outlaw.
Okay.
And they lived in the northern part of Alamance County. Chesley Fawcett was a prominent landowner, slave owner, obviously. He even had a jail in his house,
What?
like a justice of the peace for the area.
How big was his house?
He had a substantial sized house and a jail down in the basement of it.
Golly, talk about a one-stop shop.
You see this First Baptist Church right here.
Yes.
This is where Wyatt Outlaw's home and business was,
Okay.
on this site right here.
Wow.
So late on the night of February 26th, we understand it could have been as many as 100 Klansmen showed up here. Some of them, knocked in his door, went in there, grabbed him. I understand that they hid or beat, his mother who was there, and carried him out in front of his kids. And then they went to another house and found a rope bed and took the cord out of the rope bed. Back, you've heard the term sleep tight. That was like keeping the ropes tight, and they took the cord out of the bed, and that's what they used to hang him with. But they, from here down to the courthouse, he had to be, prodded and whipped and kicked and just humiliated all the way down there from this point.
That's tough. That's even tough to hear today.
Yeah.
How do you feel people approach history here in Alamance County? Do you feel that they are more open-minded to now accepting the full truth? Or do you feel that the old guard still stands pretty strong in the ideologies of what this county once represented, and trying to maintain that is still very prevalent today?
I would say that in general, people just don't know their history, good or bad. Mm-hmm. And then the people that think they know the history maybe know one dimension of it.
Sure.
I think that there's a substantial population that is familiar with, the Civil War and believe the Confederate statue is a symbol honoring, the people that served.
Yep.
Not realizing most of those people that served did so by force. They weren't these patriotic volunteers that we think about for the most part. Not knowing that statue was put up during a period of time that was trying to highlight and perpetuate Jim Crow laws and the way that certain people need to be kept in their place.
Yeah.
And so there is a good portion of the folks that are like, don't erase my history, but it's a very selective history, and partial history can be as dangerous as no history sometimes.
Yeah, most definitely.
So it's not about understanding history. To me, is not about assigning blame. It's not about trying to exact revenge. It's trying to understand what took place so that we can become better citizens and better people.
More
from learning
informed.
about it.
Yeah.
More informed, so we don't make the same mistakes, so that we can appreciate how we got through tough times.
This is true. All right, so now we're at the cemetery of some of the very same people that were responsible for instigating as well as the death of Wyatt Outlaw. And you all remember the individual with the surname Long that we talked about? Well, we're now at his gravesite. And what's the name of the cemetery again?
This is Linwood Cemetery.
Linwood Cemetery.
And this is Jacob Allison Long, who was the founder and leader of the Ku Klux Klan in Alamance County, who was a master of ceremonies type, at the unveiling of the statue in 1914. And fled to Clay County, Missouri, home of the Jesse James gang, whenever there was a warrant for his arrest by the governor of North Carolina following Wyatt Outlaw's lynching.
Wow. And it's interesting, he's at the very front. He's at the very front. So much evil.
Confederate soldier in Wright's Battery of Artillery of Virginia. Not the oldest cemetery around, but old for the town of Graham.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to a cemetery that's a little older.
Okay.
Next.
Okay, let's do it.
I'm not going to fixate too much on a specific name in the grave, but what I would like you to start looking at, you see the flags?
I do.
Those are all Confederate veterans. And you see there's flags here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Even further back.
They're just all over the place here because, again, and a lot of the folks in here were Klan members.
Wow.
As well. Albright, I live in Albright Township.
Yeah,
Holt.
you did say that.
I'm not saying that any particular grave is this person, but I'm just saying.
But you know that these.
You go look at the affidavits of the people that turned state's evidence. The Albrights, the Holts, the Newlands, Murphy. These names were mentioned.
They were the ones.
These names were mentioned.
Wow.
So
what does it say on these flags?
I want you to look at this flag and tell me if you recognize it.
I don't. I can tell you
right
now. May 20th, 1775. Okay.
So this is known as the North Carolina secession flag. So this flag was introduced at the start of the Civil War, and it changes the colors around on what is today the North Carolina flag. Today where the star is blue and it's red and white in the field, the bars. Also, if you look at the date, it's got May 20th, 1775, which is on today's North Carolina flag.
For sure.
But the lower date is May 20th, 1861, which was the date that the Ordinance of Secession in North Carolina was passed.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
So when you see this flag, it's standing for, the Confederacy. I've seen it on houses. You can drive by somebody's house and you not recognize the flag, and they may be giving you a political statement,
For sure.
and it pays to understand some of the flags that you see. I've seen flags here in Graham that are all blue with a strip of stars this way and a strip of stars that way. That is the flag of the Confederate Corps of Leonidas Polk during the Civil War. And he was a bishop in the Episcopal Church, and so he changed the St. Andrew's Cross into a Christian cross on the flag. But again, people don't recognize it, but that's somebody making a political statement.
Yeah. Plain in your face.
Yeah.
Don't even know it.
But you can see here,
plenty of them.
Flags there, here, there, one back there. There's 3 or 4 there. There's one there. There's 2, 3 there.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah. There's one behind that tombstone. So, and I've walked through here and read some of these people were killed in battle.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them died of disease. Some of them lived after the Civil War. But it just kind of gives you a sense of what, took place in this area. And I would say that this is not tremendously different from most small towns, especially in the South.
Yeah. Well, I saw that there was a marker that was in the middle.
Yes,
here.
we can walk to see.
Any names? Well, there's a long right there, Albania Long.
Yeah.
1852 to 1927. So I'm sure that perhaps she may be connected to the Long that may have, with Wyatt Outlaw. There's some Holts that are here. I mean, how ironic is it that you have the same surnames over here versus over there? Unless it was just like separate churches that this group decided to go to this congregation and that group decided to go to another congregation.
Well, you married the daughter in the other congregation, so, they come here, you go there. I mean, there was a lot of cross-pollination, I would say.
Yeah. So when they say call this a meeting house here, how does that, for you all, because obviously from a Quaker standpoint,
right?
How does...
There was no relation in that regard. I mean, up in New England, they call the congregational churches meeting houses as well. I would think the biggest difference is in a Quaker meeting, our name is, a friends meeting and everything, whereas this is clearly a church. It's just that they used it as a meeting place before there was ever any buildings in Graham, and Graham wasn't even here.
Yeah.
This is where people would gather, say, okay, who's going to be the mayor? Who's going to be on the town council? Where are we going to start building things and lay the streets out? This is where they would have met for that.
Yeah. And it says that this was a early Indian path, stagecoach road, leaving their marks in this area where their names, O'Kelly, Rainey, Worth, Turrentine, Gayson, Long, Stanley, and Jones. Those are some of the surnames.
So what was known as colonial trading path that went from Petersburg, Virginia down to Salisbury, North Carolina, passed through this area. It's one reason that the Battle of Alamance was fought where it was, is because it was on the colonial trading path, which was kind of like the main thoroughfare in the colonial times to go through the state.
Right.
And that road through my family's land,
which we
was one of those colonial roads that was prominent, and you can look on the maps from the 1770s and you can see it.
Before we go, I want to give a special thanks to Ron Osborne for sharing such powerful history here in Alamance County. Through his words, we're reminded of Wyatt Outlaw, a Union veteran, a community leader, and the first black elected official in Graham, whose life was stolen by the Klan in 1870. Ron's dedication to telling this story ensures Outlaw's legacy of courage and leadership is not forgotten, but instead celebrated. Thank you all for watching. If you would like to support this work and help me continue uncovering heralded history, consider becoming a member, and be sure to share this episode with your fellow history lovers. Peace and blessings.